I want to make a quick point about foreign policy real quick. Wait,
can we? All right. And then Benjamin, because he hasn't spoken in a while.
Well, your point is very well taken on the police issue. On the issue of foreign policy, this is hard for me to say because I think both parties, people are going to get bombed and die. That's what's going to happen. However, Mike Pompeo is currently in charge of our foreign policy right now. Mike Pompeo is a rapture-ready lunatic neocon who is literally like starving several countries in a more extreme way than America's ever done. Like, not just Iran, also Venezuela, and the country I live in the most of the time, Lebanon. The future of that country right now is actually in the hands of who wins the presidency, because if it's another Donald Trump presidency, that maximum pressure campaign on Iran hits Lebanon even harder because they see Hezbollah as an extension of Iran. So like there actually, in this case, there really is a difference between Mike Pompeo and a Joe Biden administration that would be more open to diplomacy because he will want to go back to the nuclear deal. So I do think it is issue by issue. It's not like, and I do think in some cases this like whole harm reduction thing does apply because people in places like Venezuela and Iran need a little bit of breathing room. And that's all they see it as, is just a little bit of breathing room. Because under this maximum pressure, Mike Pompeo, Elliot Abrams, like lunatic neocon situation, they can't breathe, at all. It's impossible. They're strangling the economy of these places to the point where life is impossible. So I do think that presents a difference. And to me personally, I guess maybe I'm being a little selfish too because of the place I live, but it is really, really difficult living in a place where you can't access your money because the banks don't work because of sanctions. It's really difficult. This stuff affects people in ways we can't even imagine. So I actually do think in this case, a Biden administration would be far, far better than a Trump administration would. You can use that against me if I'm completely wrong in 2 years. Maybe I am. But this situation right now is untenable.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to a comparison. Would you rather live in Iran under maximum pressure or Libya under Obama's civil war?
Fair enough.
And I think that if Hillary Clinton had won, something quite similar would be happening in Syria.
That's true.
And potentially in other places.
But it's happening in Syria. It's happening in Syria, actually, with sanctions. Syria is being strangled by sanctions right now.
Yes, but sanctions. I think there would be an American occupation.
That's the point. With
troops in Syria. American ground troops with another Iraq-type prolonged.
They are there now.
That was never a potential. That was never a possibility. But
she talked about very large numbers.
What was a continuation of arming death squads in Syria would have continued.
And John Kerry argued for going in with ground troops. He did during the Obama administration.
This argument presumes that a Republican would do something different. That a Republican would be somehow pursuing a more peaceful and dovish option than the Democrat. We've just seen that with Trump. You couldn't have a more hawkish foreign policy with Trump. I heard people in 2016, I got it. I didn't agree with it, but people saw Hillary Clinton, a warmonger, and they saw Donald Trump criticizing Hillary Clinton's hawkish record. And a lot of people thought that Trump might be better on that. He wasn't. He hasn't done a single thing better on foreign policy than Obama did. And in fact, he's been much more hawkish, you could say.
He hasn't invaded another country like Libya.
Well, I think yes, but again, that presumes.
I mean, he tried to do it in Venezuela. He did a poor job.
He tried to do a coup. He has not.
Let Aaron finish. Sorry.
So you're saying that John McCain, who was Obama's opponent in 2008, who would have been in the presidency in 2011 when Obama bombed Libya, you're saying that John McCain wouldn't have done that? I mean,
I'm not making that argument about John McCain.
Well, you are, though.
I'm not arguing that we should always vote for the Republican. I'm talking about Trump here, right? I do believe that if we had voted for Hillary Clinton, we would get more military interventions that kill more people and reduce the economic output and living standard of more people in the world than we've had over the last 4 years with Donald Trump. And that's not to deny or to in any way minimize the number of people whose living standards have been decimated by Donald Trump. But given the record of Democrats bombing countries, invading countries, supporting ground troop invasions of countries, I do think we have to take very seriously the possibility that there could have been a large-scale ground invasion.
No. By the end of Obama's term, they knew, and I think Rania, you'd agree, that the Syria proxy war was over. They lost. The only option there.
Yeah, Trump actually continued what the Obama administration was already doing. I know this for a fact.
There's another thing, right? They've imposed murderous sanctions that are even worse than any sanctions that came before.
John Kerry was arguing during the Obama administration to
But listen, there's also things happening behind the scenes. There's also back channels that happen behind the scenes. You have people engaging with with the Syrian government, with the U.S. government behind the scenes that go back and forth and speak to each one. Under a Trump administration, that has been happening much less. Under Obama administration, there was a lot of more back channel between people like John Kerry and the Syrian foreign minister or the Syrian government.
If I can just jump in on something. Would Hillary have killed the Iran nuclear deal and reimposed the murderous sanctions?
We can sit here and say what if.
Would Hillary have done that? It's important. It's important. Would Hillary Clinton have done that?
No, Hillary Clinton would not have done that. But I think that the Libyan intervention is worse than anything Donald Trump has done. Barack Obama.
That might be true.
If I can just say, on policy on the Middle East, there's a debate. There is a speculative debate. What would have Hillary Clinton done differently from Donald Trump? And that is unknown. We simply don't know what Hillary Clinton was going to do. What we do know, though, is the change from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. And what happened is a huge expansion, a loosening of the threshold for civilian casualties in American drone strikes. And so thousands of civilians more were killed under Donald Trump's strikes in both Syria and Iraq and elsewhere than compared to the Obama administration. And the nuclear deal is not just about the economic impact on Iranians, the withdrawal from the nuclear deal, but Donald Trump brought us closer than any other president ever to direct conflict, to direct war with Iran. He killed an
Iranian general in Iraq. And he almost started a war with Iran in Iraq. Like, that was batshit. That was
and Iran retaliated by bombing military bases that had U.S. soldiers. And had there been deaths as a result of that, you could very much argue that there would be a regional war that would have killed literally, not exaggerating and not inflating numbers, millions of people if there was a full-on confrontation where Iran decides to go out and its allies against the United States and Israel and Saudi Arabia and whoever else.
It would be a suicidal move for Iran. There was never any real risk of Iran escalating it to that degree because Iran knows that it can't win that conflict.
They've injured 100 U.S. troops. It was certainly a possibility.
If there is a second Trump administration, Iran will have no more restraint left.
Exactly.
Because a second Trump administration will mean four. Oh, yes.
Exactly.
If there is a second Trump administration.
I actually don't disagree that Biden obviously has a superior position vis-a-vis the Iran deal, without a doubt. But I mean, again, this is the kind of point I'm making, is that I feel the scales of justice element of harm reduction arguments are problematic. I mean, what's one of the big stories that's been in the news in Latin America that's not Bolivia over the past 4 or 5 months? I mean, that's the mass murder of social movement activists in Colombia, which is obviously a direct result of the fact the Obama administration wasn't willing to lift even the slightest finger to move forward to try to push forward the Colombia peace deal, which he could have done and could have facilitated in many ways, including the release of Simone Trinidad, but also just supporting the Cuban process that he refused to support and using under the guise of his declaring of Venezuela as a national security state, some of the issues surround the so-called FARC, the so-called narco traffickers, which actually was the legal basis by which Donald Trump started to move forward with more aggressive sanctions against Venezuela, which, by the way, Biden is now campaigning on continuing and being tougher than Trump on Venezuela. In fact, handing out his shirts for the Latinos for Biden that they're 100% progressive, but 100% anti-communist, that they are, using the Chavez eyes and all these different elements. So again, the issue is not, can we just go here or go there and say, this is better than that, but this is worse than that? Again, the issue to me comes back to, as conscious people, looking at the role elections play in the context of other social movement activity that I think plays a bigger role. is there a role to be had for people to come out and to support, you call them so-called third parties. I would call them parties that lift up the voices of the marginalized and exploited in an uncompromising way. I don't know how you could have history without that. I mean, everyone will look back and say, yes, it was so great that the abolitionists had this Liberty Party and Free Soil Party, and they fought for all these things. And like, isn't it quaint that they did all this? But like at the time, you would be making similar arguments against them. And so it's not to demonize anyone who's going to go pull the lever for Biden. I mean, I suspect that will be the least relevant thing I even engage with someone on when I meet them over the next course of the next weeks. It'll probably, after the election, it'll probably be more likely the things we have in common. So I'm not trying to raise this to some level of demonization. I'm just trying to raise it to the level that there's, I think, a very strong argument to make for people who are politically conscious and understand what really needs to happen to transform this society, that we have a duty to raise that banner and that image in direct contradistinction to those who we know will not do it, and fight for hope and fight for change and transformation over just constant every 4 years. The political register has moved to the right every 4 years. Where is the turnaround? Where is the better organizing?
Where like a candidate
about someone in the WWE Hall of Fame going up against a dude with cognitive decline who supported segregation? Like, where is the increase here? I don't know why it's so controversial to stand for what you believe in.
I just want to push back on a little bit on sort of the discourse moving to complete shit. I think that there is much more progressive movement as well that I think we should recognize. Obviously, depending on which lens you look at the conversation through. But the fact that you have the squad, AOC and Ilhan and Rashida and Ayanna Pressley, all elected to Congress, the fact that you have a victory for Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, these are all positive signs of progressives taking on the Democratic establishment.
I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that at all?
No, I agree it's a positive sign, but it's not
it's a positive
election. It's because the basis of the foundation was built to move because people were willing to be in the streets and be uncompromising.
For sure. Unquestionably. Yeah.
So we have to, you guys want to come back later on this week so we can finish this debate. I want to give you guys 30 seconds each. And then sadly we have to pause this conversation, but let's do a part 2. Okay. Does anyone want to do a final statement? You want me to start mine, or should I? No, I'll give it to you guys, and then once you're gone, I'll talk shit about all of you. Just kidding. No. Do you guys want to let's go. Eugene, you basically gave yours. Is that okay? Or am I silencing you? Because I was just
going to make a pitch to everyone to donate to every project that everyone here is working on.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of dollars powered the Bernie Sanders campaign. Imagine if we had $300 million go into the projects that people here are working, how we could change things. So,
Bernie 2024 is my new project. That's all I'm saying. I'm kidding, everyone. Aaron looked I could see Aaron's eyeballs in the back of his head. Okay, final statements from everyone. Let's go. Which way? I don't like this. I love this, but I don't know. Let's go from Omar that way. Oh, we're gonna end on Benjamin.
Sure. I don't even know are we all popping in the same in the same order on people's screens?
Yeah, I think so.
Basically, look. In closing, I'll just say I'll acknowledge that. Absolutely, I think Eugene's point is absolutely important. The election is just the election, and there's so much more important work that we need to be doing around the rest. Not to restrict our progressive movement building to just an election, because that is on the less significant side of things. That said, the Democrats are worse on some issues. The Republicans are worse on so many more issues. And so just as a matter of balance, looking right now at the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, it seems absolutely clear to me that Trump is a much more imminent danger. And frankly, even in the lead up to this election, he's made it clear that he intends to hold on to power with his claws. And I think that we risk a very serious crisis. And it seems like the kind of crisis where it really could take the country to utter and total shit. I know it is already shit for many people in so many ways, but then it would make it shitty for everyone. And that is worse than it being shitty for some people with the possibility of progress. So I'll just leave it at that.
Let's do Rania, Benjamin, and Aaron. I think that's a good order of people be talking.
I don't want to tell anyone who to vote for. I think you should vote for who you want to vote for. If you want to vote your conscience, vote your conscience. I can just tell you who I voted for, and you got to take it from there. I don't think we should be demanding and telling people and then shaming them if they don't do it right. Do your thing. At the end of the day, we don't live in a democracy. we live in we live in a corporate dictatorship that's actually scarier than other dictatorships because people are under the illusion that they live in a democracy, but they don't. And I think that we need to be focused on changing that by building outside of the Democratic Party, regardless of who you vote for. I think that's what's most important. And one way to do that is through other parties. Like, I think after this election, we're starting now, like, we need to be building outside of this piece of shit party because they only make things worse. And I'm sick of that. I'm so sick of having this debate every 4 years.
Katie,
I'm so done with it.
I'm so sorry. I know that we're done, but just a quick question for Rania. Is shaming people who vote for Trump okay? Or do you think that shaming people for any moral behavior
I
is
think
wrong?
it's okay to shame people, for me to shame people. I think it's okay for me to shame people.
It's not very effective. But.
I don't think, look, if you want to shame people who vote for Trump, go ahead.
But it's self-defeating.
Like, if you want to gain people to your side,
right?
Like, that might make you feel good. It makes me feel good.
That's the irony. The irony is it's self-indulgent. I would say the big irony is it's self-indulgent purity politics to shame people.
Is that true for all bad moral behavior or just elections?
I don't know. Well, hold on. I'm not dodging. I'm not dodging.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that. All right, Benjamin and Aaron.
Yeah. Well, I do think that
30
people
seconds.
talk about how you can't know the future, but we do know that incumbents get blamed for bad things that happen. So if the system is going to continue to generate more inequality, every president, starting with Jimmy Carter on, has seen a higher top 1% income share. If it's just going to get worse and worse, if we vote for a Democrat who's not going to change anything, we're just ensuring that we get blamed when it blows up. Let's make sure they get blamed. Let's leave them around. The liberals are selling a fear narrative that it's going to all be an apocalypse if he wins another term. It's not. It's going to be like George W. Bush's second term, and we're going to be in good shape when it's over.
Aaron.
The question on the ballot is not what kind of movement do we want to build, how do we want to organize. It's, do we want to live under Donald J. Trump or Joe Biden? The system is much bigger than either two candidates. So the question is, which of these awful people do we want at the helm of it? And it's no question to me that we want the candidate who most likely, on so many key issues, will most likely kill and cause suffering for the most number of people. So it's an obvious choice for me. And I will actually shame people who are not looking at the choice right in front of us today and trying to base a decision on a probability in the future that they have no idea of, actually. I actually think that's shameful. You're saying we should deny Iranian kids medicine now because something worse might come along in 4 years. I'm sorry. I think that's an act of contempt towards people who will suffer the most as a result of the choices that are made on one day. And it's just one day. It shouldn't be a topic of very much debate. There's two people. One of them is a lot worse. So let's vote against that person. It's a pretty easy choice to me.
Channeling Noam Chomsky. Aaron, no, I'm not. It's not a diss. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, I think that this has been a great conversation. You guys should all come on again.
In 4 years.
No, in 4 days. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. No, I mean, and yeah, I think, well, also intellectual debate is different from shaming your like brother-in-law or someone on the street.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Or like your mom or dad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Stupidly.
But I do think that, I guess, Eugene, your position, then we'll end it here. Your position is, to me, the most, like, you seem to be saying it's harm, you seem to be saying they're both awful. So why reward one at all? But you're not denying that Trump is worse than Biden in many areas.
I mean, I'm not making it about rewards. I'm making it about what we need to do, from my perspective, to change the state of affairs to where we're always having this conversation. I'm happy to be shamed for that, but I think that at the end of the day, everyone always says every 4 years, we're going to talk about it. We're going to do that next time. We're going to do this half time. We're going to do this next time. And it never really happens. And I think historically, what we have seen, it's never we're going to do this next time because of this, that, and the third. It's well, I guess we're going to do this time, even if it has other implications, because we feel this is a way that can move forward in a concrete way, to use the election in a way to make a concrete attempt to organize more people around a real politic to try to move the country.
Well, now we just have to actually.
But if it's just one day, I'm happy to let people vote for Biden. But at the end of the day, we have to ask why we keep coming back to the same place over and over again and keep deferring the conversation about what everyone says we need, which is something different.
Yeah. All right. I just think it'll be easier to do that under Biden than Trump. But I respect everyone's opinions. And I think this has been a great chat. And yeah, let's do it again.
Always
Thank you,
ready.
Katie.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone. Yeah.